Signalis is a game that I wasn't expecting to play or be this hooked about. My friend recommended it to me as a result of him doing some research for a university project of his, and happened to find this game interesting for his own reasons. Well, after months of being told, I finally decided to play it, and I'm absolutely lost and confused about what I just experienced after 9 hours. Let's get into it, shall we? One of the biggest draws to Signalis is its incredible story, something that I've seen being raved across many reviews and videos. I went over to Backlog to get some inspiration, and everybody was pretty much on the same page when it came to the story. I still don't have a clue on what's going on after finishing the game, and this is a great thing for mediums, as endings should always get you to ask questions and sport a bit of confusion alongside it, like how we saw with the original Blade Runner movie for instance, or the final episode of The Sopranos. Signalis takes place in a seemingly futuristic world where humanity wishes to expand outside of Earth and venture to new planets in hopes of finding resources and places to live. You play as Alsta, a synthetic or a Gestalt as they call them. Gestalt? Gestalt? Yeah, we'll go with Gestalt for this one. Made of human DNA, who wakes up out of cryostasis to find that her ship has crash landed and everyone's disappeared. One thing to take note of are all of the lore notes that you can find throughout the game that's strongly recommended to read if you want to understand more about what's going on, as skipping through them will prompt you to ask more questions by the end. Alsta wakes up with one goal, to find Alina Sio and fulfill her promise. It's very vague at first, but begins to open up as you get later into the game. Gestalts are classified as replicas among every other person you see in the game, soldiers that are designed to complete different tasks and each have strengths and weaknesses, which you'll begin to see as they've turned into bloody zombies throughout this ship. There's documents that you can find talking about each variant and are all coded with personas as they call them, each having a human personality and can be broken or degraded in a way that causes the replica to become unstable and turn against their programming. For example, the Alsta units are established with war memories, so any mention of war would put them at high risk, as well as watching any movies. I don't want to dive too deep into the story as, to me, this is one of those games where you have to go out there and experience it for yourself, but I'll try to keep it brief so you know what you'll be getting into, as well as some of the themes this game embodies and explores. The game's story is confusing, interesting, and leaves you asking many questions, depending on which ending you get. The game explores themes of love, grief, identity, and memory, as you learn about each of these different replicas and slowly get introduced to the game's many characters, each playing a certain role. Some you may figure out for yourself, others you'll just have no idea on what their purpose is. The game's cutscenes are wonderful, computer-generated scenes that look like something out of an anime or a VHS tape, and I love how the game tries to switch from fixed camera angles to first person, allowing the story to be told from different perspectives, something that I've never seen done in any other survival horror game I've played. Rose Engine does a great job of keeping the game both fascinating and a mystery, as a lot of these cutscenes usually last for a second or a few hundred milliseconds and contain simple words and cool writing. Signalis has Resident Evil and Silent Hill DNA all over it, but it's a good thing, especially considering how old school the game feels. For starters, it's your typical survival horror game with combat, puzzles, and backtracking, alongside simple inventory management. Alsta has quite a few weapons to choose from, such as the trusty 9mm pistol, the pump shotgun, a revolver, a flare gun, a rifle, and a submachine gun, each having their own ammunition types. Combat is fairly straightforward, simply aim at a target, wait until it locks into your target, and shoot, alongside a finisher while they're shaking on the floor. There's also equipment available too, such as a flashlight for dark places, an eye used for taking photos, a stun prod to allow for easy kills and ammo conservation, and thermite flares to burn your enemies. Why do you need to burn enemies if they're already on the ground, do you ask? Well, enemies in Signalis work like old Resident Evil zombies. After an X amount of time, zombies will come back to life and pretend that the shots you put into them didn't matter, so burning them is a good way to make sure that they stay dead for good. I love this because it adds tension, especially when you're lacking resources, which is another great thing that this game does. Resource management is very important because of how limited items are in this game, so making proper use of your resources is key to success. I ran out of ammo so many times that I had to run past infested areas just to get by. Thankfully, they don't follow you over to the next room. Puzzles in this game are tough and can be hard to solve, especially if you're not the kind of guy to pay attention to everything they pick up from the floor. My favorite kinds of puzzles were the ones where you had to use a radio to adjust and tune to the right frequency in order to open an object or gain a hint for a safe code. Also something that I've never seen done before in a survival horror game. If you're enjoying the video so far, consider liking and subscribing with notifications turned on. For those who are new, I'm Pepsilk and I make all kinds of gaming videos, from reviews to memes and anything that I find of interest. Any support is appreciated and I thank you for being here. Backtracking and inventory management are two problems that I have with the game. For one, it feels like there's a bit too much backtracking to the point where I physically began to get headaches from going back and forth, but it plays along with the inventory management as Signalis likes to play to the rule of 6, so you can only carry 6 items at a time. Because of how many items you can pick up as key items for puzzles or just general use, a lot of the time you'll be speed running back to the nearest safe room to quickly dump these items, learn that you need it for a certain puzzle, then go back and collect said items, and there's just so much that I didn't quite enjoy it. At least the flashlight and eye camera don't count, so that's nice. Items can be inspected and combined, incredibly handy when it comes to your healing options, which you have a few. Repair patches, repair sprays, and auto injectors. Patches and sprays can be combined to create a more potent spray, and auto injectors are either automatically used when you're about to die or can be used to fully restore your health. It's best to run at least one weapon with the ammo type, followed by a few heals and your key items. That's how I was able to get past these two issues. Signalis does feature difficulty levels, but I strongly recommend playing normal for your first playthrough. I did a bit of testing and the only thing that really changes is how many hits it takes for enemies to die. The level design of Signalis is good. I mean super good. Areas are all interconnected, tight, and close. Pause. Much like the Raccoon Police Department or the foggy town of Silent Hill, and maps help with navigation, marking which doors and rooms you've gone to and which ones you haven't in yellow. It's not modern by any means, giving you quest markers or marking items of interest in certain areas like the modern RE games for example. I'm just stressing this so people know what they're getting themselves into. You start off at the space station, then make your way down to the mines where a map won't come in handy, instead having to rely on your sense of location and awareness to figure out where you're going, followed by returning to the station once more. Oh, and there's also the smaller areas like the beach and the train, but are more for the atmosphere and emotional experiences. I expected Signalis to be scary like many other survival horror games, but that is not the case. Instead, the game slowly builds tension with each sounding moment, whether it's the zombies coming back to life or running out of resources to use, so there's no cheap jump scares or moments that make your heart pound. I love this design because not every horror game has to be about being scared all the time, and I think Rose Engine carefully decided this to not only make the game less scary, but also an entry-level game to those who may not have played horror games or aren't the biggest horror fans. I love that in the first safe room I entered, I'm greeted with a red computer and straight away thought of Silent Hill 2. I don't know why, but the sound it makes when you interact with the computer sounds like the siren from the Alien and Prometheus trailers. The enemies in Signalis are well designed and vary nicely, with some of the designs clearly taking inspiration from Silent Hill, such as the Storch units, which resemble the mannequin, the Yules, which resemble the nurse, and the Chimera, which resembles the Fleshlip. They start off easy but progressively get harder as time goes on. The enemies that I had problems with and could never figure out how to properly kill were the Star units, girls with shields. I tried to either go behind them or bait out an attack from the front, but I wasn't sure if this was the proper way to counter them. Calibri would have to be a highlight, having to use your radio and keep tuning to the frequency that pops up on your screen until they die. The game uses a pixelated art style alongside a 3D graphical space, consisting of dark and not so pretty colors to create this desolate, broken down space station. As mentioned before, it's very anime or manga too if you want to think of it like that, and it reminded me a lot of the PS1 era of gaming. I was really able to admire this game's look when I got out to the snow and to the beach. Truly incredible stuff. Walking at slow speed for both of these areas was the perfect choice. I like the OST of Signalis. It didn't wow me by any means, but it was enough for me to enjoy listening to it and it fit the game well. But when I started hearing the classical songs they used, it made me smile. I love classical music and I recognized the song straight away, from Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 14 to Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake and Rachmaninoff's Isle of the Dead. Never did I think that survival horror would mesh well with classical music. The sound effects were similar for the guns, but it wasn't a deal breaker, considering that this was a two-man game. Ambience worked perfectly for the dark tone it's going for, and that safe room music. God damn! Love tracks like these. Signalis is a game that made me ask questions. How did this all happen? Are the characters still alive? Why is the cycle being repeated over and over again? Why do I keep coming back to life? Combine that with good survival horror mechanics, tension over cheap jump scares, and CG cutscenes that make me gasp in awe about how two people managed to cook these up, and you have a game that continues to be talked about years after release, with many essays and analytical videos primarily talking about the game's story. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would, and I can't help but wonder what other indie horror games I'm missing out on. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. If I missed anything, comment down below. And as always, I'll have more coming to you soon. Peace.